Okay, great. Thank you for everyone coming here. And today it's really our pleasure to invite the world first and maybe still largest gaming, broadcasting, live streaming platform, the founder of the Twitch platform. Right now or recently, he also involved into sort of project or invest some project in Web3, and we all are very interesting about the development of this new era. So please, everyone, let's welcome co-founder of Twitch, Kevin Lin. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, really excited to talk through Web3 games. We've thought about this a lot for about 3 years now, a little over. And we're actually about to launch something, so I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. So how does blockchain really affect video games? First, I think it's important to think about what is a game? What is the most basic function of a video game? It's a structured form of play, typically undertaken for enjoyment. That's a really important word because a lot of what's gone on in Web3 is not so much about enjoyment, but about work. And so games are typically distinct from work. Their work is carried out for remuneration. You expect a return on the labor and the time that you put in and the skill that you develop. And it's different from art, which is more about expression, although art in itself can grow its own little mini economy. But games are starting to be considered work more and more societally. Esports is one such form of work, where as a professional player, you can participate in tournaments around the world and earn a living and earn a salary. Games in terms of content creation on Twitch and YouTube, playing games, expressing yourself through your hobby, through content, can also earn you money. So the distinction is becoming blurrier and blurrier, which sets a really interesting tone for Web3. Web3 is ostensibly about ownership, very similar to Pokemon cards or Magic cards, but from a digital standpoint, there hasn't been too much technological advancement there. People do trade items through sort of gray market economies. Counter-Strike, World of Warcraft, EVE Online, RuneScape, people do sell accounts. And so people are working on the one hand and someone's buying that work. But Web3 supposedly is going to make that easy to do, traceable, trackable, with full ownership structure, and in theory, eventually, full economies. And why are games important? Why do people care so much about games these days? It's because it's the #1 activity of your average human across the planet outside of sleep and work. So if you think about sleep, 8 hours a day for the average person, work or school per day is about 8 hours for the average person, and so you've got 8 hours of leisure time. 7 of those hours are spent on a device, and 3 of those 7, on average, are spent playing games. It is now almost a social glue. It's gone beyond what people typically think of when they think of games, which are individualized activities. They're multiplayer, community-driven social experiences. Gen Z and Gen Alpha also spend 3 hours a day. It's becoming sort of as research has come out across games and social media and online video consumption, there are some societal problems emerging from this. And so it's ever more important to think about games and what they mean for society. Even elderly play games. So there's a common misperception that gaming is just for kids. The average person around the world who plays games is actually 38 years old. And there's data now that's showing from America that those that are 55 and up are actually playing for up to 4 hours a day on a second screen. They're typically playing a very casual game while they watch the news or watch television, but it is becoming sort of a really deep part of everyday life. So what is a Web3 game? Well, we don't really know yet. There have been many attempts at this. The last big arc, the rally cry for Web3 games, was play to earn or play and earn, which is a subtle distinction. But games like Axie Infinity, which really helped the space take off 3 years ago in 2021, established this general idea that you could make money playing video games, which was really appealing to me with Twitch. Twitch really was about helping people make money playing video games. But now you're extrapolating one layer deeper. You no longer need to create content. You can just play a game and create theoretical value. But the unfortunate reality is this really fell flat, and all these economies crashed over the last couple of years. Things are starting to bounce back with certain games, but the reality is on the financial side, if you have players who only want money, that's what they're here for. And so if the money funnel ever ceases to exist or even shrinks a little bit, you get player churn. And in Web3 also, just the way it's structured from an investment standpoint, you have market makers, you have liquidity pools. These are large pools of money that prop up the game economy. Just as a stock might be propped up by really large investors, there's financial manipulation risk, as in the investors, if they're not above board and they're not reliable, they can rug pull, they can reduce the value of a token that is cycling in the economy just by selling. And so that's been one of the major issues that continues to happen in the space. And a big part of it too is most of the folks that were building in the space were not game makers. Not that you have to be a game maker, experienced game maker to make a game. I hope that's true because that's what we're doing. But most of the games were really boring. They were really casual. They were built with speed to get out to market. And they didn't understand their communities, and they didn't continue to elaborate on the game and add more systems to the game. And of course, finally, there's player ADD. Most of the initial Web3 game players just were there really for the money. And so they jump from project to project because the way most of these cycles work is everything looks really nice in the beginning. The token price is going up, people are marketing it, influencers are marketing these games, but as soon as the price tapers off and starts to diminish, players churn. So a quick primer on the basics, at least, of what we think. These are all generated images, by the way. What we sort of have as a foundational technologies and hopes for blockchain-enabled games. So blockchain is the enabling technology. It's basically a new data structure, provides security, transparency, and decentralized gaming experience. I'll talk about why that's important later. Player ownership is the number one thing, at least that we're focused on. Again, many people have started with let's start with the economy side first. We're focused just on the simple idea of what happens if players own items inside of a video game, and that's what blockchain enables. Secure transactions, so like I mentioned, a lot of this type of economy trading in traditional Web2 games like Counter-Strike happened in a gray market through sort of basic transaction systems like PayPal and Venmo, but there's a lot of fraud issues, a lot of security issues with that. Blockchain enables these transactions to be very tamper resistant and transparent. And then smart contracts. Smart contracts are another piece of sort of the hope of Web3, where you as a user can really understand how a system works. Those contracts are public. They're self-executing between players and developers. Anybody can get access to them. Any changes to contracts are publicly available, and so that, in theory, can help support from the bottom up trust in a lot of these economies. And then the big one, two big ones, decentralized governance. This is this general concept of, can you build games through community? In general, building through true broad democratic collaboration is only rife with disaster, but if you actually build a good governance structure, can communities feel even more hands-on and more ownership of the development of a game and the community around it? And then finally, the thing that most people are very excited about is, can you actually have new economic models? Can Web3 really innovate a player's relationship with a game, where you're not just playing the game and sinking money into the game now, you can actually earn? And what does that earning really mean? And what does value creation really mean? So who are the Web3 gamers? At least today, I think there are roughly 4 buckets. There are the true believers. And the thing about Web3 games, in our opinion, as we've learned and observed and are continuing to build, is games will be forever unfinished. Unlike a traditional AAA game like Fallout or sort of big story-driven AAA games, they're not really complete. They're ever-changing. Very more similar to a Fortnite or a Roblox or a Minecraft, where the game developers and the community are constantly in this sort of tug-of-war where the game can go. That is very much what we believe is going to happen in Web3, where these games are ever-living, breathing organisms that continually evolve. And so these are the blockchain believers. They want blockchain in games. They believe in the basics of it. They believe in ownership. They believe in eventually economy. But they're drawn to it. They're not sure what to expect, but they're there. They're excited. They're along for the ride. Then there's the degens, as they say, the purely financially driven. This is unfortunately the bulk of the market, and so it creates really unreliable communities for builders in the space because they want one thing. They want the token price to go up, they want the NFT price to go up, and the second that starts to deplete, they're out. Then there's the Web2 gamer. There's a lot of cautious skeptics in this category. Twitch and YouTube creators unfortunately drive a lot of this skepticism. They're not wrong. There have been many scams and sort of fraudulent projects in the space. But as a result of these influencers, they're sort of pushing people away from it. That makes it really hard to build because those are the people you really want to appeal to help transition from Web 2 to Web 3. And then there's the people that can truly benefit. I'll share some stories in a moment, but there are 1 billion people around the world who survive on less than $1 a day. And that is what the initial wave of Web 3 appealed to. In the Philippines in 2021, there were all these articles that hit top news around the world that basically was saying Axie Infinity was allowing people to quit their terrible jobs, their blue-collar jobs, and instead play a video game. And they were making more money playing Axie Infinity than they were making from their job. So in the Philippines, as an example, the average person makes $200 a month, US. People were making $400 to $1,000 a month. And so ostensibly this was completely life-changing. And it allowed them to do work from home, it allowed them to spend more time with their families, and of course gave them more financial benefits than their previous job. But unfortunately, a lot of that came crashing down. So a very brief history, just over the last 3 years, which is where a lot of this excitement's been driven. Sandbox and other games launched in 2020, they launched tokens. They sort of built a really basic game environment without much actual game system. And so their token also dropped dramatically. In 2021, this is the game Axie Infinity that I'm referencing. People in the Philippines were earning crypto during the pandemic just by playing a video game. This drove a lot of the excitement and a lot of the investment that happened in 2021 and 2022. Then in 2022 to 23, the crash started to happen. In general, broadly, financial system was collapsing, but it affected crypto much more aggressively. Since, again, those communities were small and very thin and propped up by these big money pools. Step In, which was a move to earn game, Axie down below, the player rates started to drop below minimum wage, and so obviously the players fled. It also caused a lot of damage. In other words, because you were getting paid in cryptocurrency, not only did you suddenly start to earn less, but a lot of your previous earnings dropped in value. So a lot of paranoia came, a lot of distrust came in Web3. But flash forward to today, obviously we're in a bull run. We were, and then we're not, and maybe we'll be again, who knows. But the general sentiment towards Web3 and NFTs for games is still very positive. People want this to exist. 1 in 3 Filipino gamers say they would quit their jobs to play these games. It's a bit of an arbitrage system, right, in a way, where you have people with time in places like Philippines or Vietnam, and people with money in the US or Europe who are willing to buy the output of the players from the games. And so that's sort of again, one of the core assumptions of this value creation system that can happen in Web3. But generally the positivity is still there. The hope for these types of games to exist is still very strong. And so, but here's the problem. Historically, these games have been very, very thin. Players are marketed to with hype, purely hype. They give you free things, airdrops, tokens or NFTs, if you do things on social, right? So it's basically just a social farming mechanism. You're farming for people to come in and follow you, so it seems bigger and bigger. Oops, obviously. Is it loud enough?
Yeah.
Better, or these things are happening, or you get some free stuff, and that's the target. The target was the degens. These are the folks, again, who are here purely for financial reasons, who will abandon as soon as those financial incentives go away, and that's caused a lot of this damage. This top graph is a Smooth Love Potion from Axie Infinity. So you saw this huge run up in 2021 when all this excitement and press was happening and all these celebrities were promoting the game. And then it came completely crashing down and has stayed at relatively low value levels since then. On the right is Sandbox. This is the Sand token, same issue. A lot of excitement, a ton of marketing. Snoop Dogg was creating stuff inside. All these famous people were creating things inside. But the reality is no one was sticking. On an average day, they had less than 100 players. And so there was no true value creation inside of the game, which is why these economies have crashed. So can video games actually do this? Is this a real possibility? I think before we think about that, we have to think about like what are these core components of these core assumptions? What is money? Money is defined as an item or a verifiable record that is accepted as payment of goods or services, repayments of debts, etc. But just if anybody can offer, what is money in society? Why do we need it? What does it really stand for in a society like ours? I'm sorry?
Exchange fund.
Medium of exchange. Yes, that's right. That's actually the first thing. Anyone else? Store value, right?
Yeah.
So these are two core assumptions upon which our modern financial system is built. And it's arguable that this is actually incorrect. That money is actually just an accounting system. It's a system of tracking debt and clearance of that debt. So it's a credit system in society. And if you think about it from that really basic standpoint, it can make sense in a video game. In other words, inside of a video game, if you have roles, if you have jobs, if someone can be a farmer, someone can be a crafter, someone can be a dungeon crawler, someone can do the tasks that other people don't want to do inside of the game and trade with each other, that's essentially an accounting system. You spend your time to make something, I spend my time to make something, or gather something, and we can trade. And what is an economy? It's goods and services, a large-scale system by which goods and services are produced, distributed, and consumed in society. In general, for most games, the concept of producing and distributing goods is relatively rare. If you think about a game like Fortnite, there's not really any creation of things. Yes, you can buy cosmetics which are created by the game company, but you're not creating anything inside that game system. Versus a game like Stardew Valley, which we'll talk about later, where you're crafting things, you're growing things, you're harvesting, collecting things, you're combining things, and some people are better at certain aspects of that than others. And so can that game become a true economy is sort of the big question that poses the potential for Web3. So what do game economics look like? They're very complex, actually. They're simple game loops, and these are not economies yet, but they're core facets of what can become a very complex economy. The basics of a game loop are there's a main goal, there's often minor goals along the way, there's some basic mechanics, whether it's a puzzle game, or a combat game, or an exploration game, and then there's the basic game economy in itself. Oftentimes they have gold. Gold is sort of the general name used for the top level currency, and then there's all these sub-currencies. Sub-currencies can be items that you can use, consumables, they can be cosmetics, they can be weapons, they can be armor, they can be vehicles and other things. But typically there's an action, a reward, and some sort of expansion, as in the game world starts to unfurl before you as you participate in this basic loop. There's deeper loops related to action games. So here's an example of an action game. You kill monsters, you win gold, and you buy stuff. The buying stuff is the anticipation. You continue to grind out the game, you continue to follow the quests and do your daily activities in order to win the currency, gold, that can buy the things and make your gameplay more deeper or more rewarding. This is an example of a dual loop. Now, Clash of Clans is a very economic-driven game, as in you're constantly making decisions in this game as to whether you invest in a particular building or particular upgrades for an army. You go in battle in order to earn more gold to power your economy, and so you're constantly making these decisions between battling, building, training, collecting, investing, and so you start to see it get a little bit deeper and more complex. Then you've got these nested economies, like in Mario games. These are not really the types of games that can fit in the Web3 model, although a lot of people are building games like this. They're simply too basic. It's sort of deceptively complex looking, but it's actually quite a simple game loop. Then you've got games like Pokemon Go. the sort of one of the big inputs of Web3 games is ownership. Can you own things, and can those things that you own be valuable? So if you look at Pokemon Go, what are you doing? You're catching Pokemon. You're looking for high quality, right? High CP, high stats. You're looking for shinies. You train them so you can power them up. You battle. You earn more stuff to upgrade, and then you're collecting things along the way. And so, in this case, is this a strong enough economy? As in, if I collect, shiny Charmander, 100% value, does someone want that? Probably. But what is the purpose of it? What do you use it for? Well, in this case, it's battling. If you play Pokemon Go, it's pretty basic battle system. It's not super fun. So really, at the end of the day, this game is more about the collection side. So perhaps if Pokemon Go had deeper battle systems, deeper training systems, maybe it could be very quickly flipped into a full-blown economy, because the core asset are these potentially NFTs, these characters that you're collecting. But economies look really complex. So this is machinations. If you're ever interested in testing the game system, I highly recommend this product called machinations.io. You could build really complex systems in here. This is from Sonic Dash, which this is just one aspect of the game of basically the core game running, collecting things. Then this is a loot system. So this is just one tiny little piece of a video game that determines how loot is managed. And so you can see the complexity is quite deep here. And Stardew Valley, a game that we talk about a lot in terms of, this is an interesting model for a Web3 game, because you've got so many different aspects of play. You've got foraging, harvesting, farming, harvesting, crafting, loosely defined in many different ways. You're combining things, you're fermenting things to increase value, you're having to find specific items to give to certain creatures or characters in order to progress in the game. There's fishing, which is a mini game that is not the funnest mini game, but it is an important aspect of the economy. There's dungeon crawling, so you're actually playing this sort of dungeon grind to collect different components. There's mining, there's item collecting. There's a lot of different stuff that you could do. So you can imagine in a multiplayer version of this, that if someone becomes really good at farming, and someone becomes really good at dungeon crawling, and someone becomes really good at fishing, which is more tedious tasks, people will naturally want to start to trade. And so the big question is that enough? Is that desire to trade, if a marketplace allowed it, to power a token, to power a currency that lives only within the game? So some other key components of Web3 game models. Income generation. So where does the income come from? What is the core value creation inside of a game? So if you look at Pokemon, the core value creation in theory is collection of Pokemon and collection of and the rarity system that defines the Pokemon. In a game like Stardew Valley, is it the farming? Is it the fishing? Is it the item sort of gathering and sort of extracting the items out of the game itself? Is that enough? Economic incentives. So this is a big, in my mind, big question mark in the industry. It's basically a referral system. Can you just incentivize people purely to just come into the game and engage with the game? Is that enough to keep them there? So far, we've seen that this is not quite enough. So how do you design better incentives that are more related to play or social activities? Then just general new opportunities. This is one of the more exciting thoughts on the space, is this sort of arbitrage. Can you help those in developing countries generate income through connectivity with the rest of the world, with more wealthy players, big spendies, and then a general monetization shift. There was this big arc of shift in monetization from premium games, where you bought a game for $10 to $60, to free to play, which has sort of runaway monetization. In other words, there's possibilities of pay to win. Games like World of Tanks, which was really popularized that, where you pay more money for better bullets and win more games that way. But it's kind of abusive in terms of its monetization practice. So there's a lot of desire in the space now for different monetization systems. And then challenges and other barriers generally for game adoption. It's complex right now still to get into a game. You have to create a wallet, you have to understand currency. It's a little bit too complex for the average player to really grasp. There's a lot of regulatory uncertainty, right? How to define things as a security. If an item starts to throw off tokens, is that security? This is still really nebulous across the globe. User onboarding, again, this is also related to the technical complexity, but there's a lot of education that needs to happen. And a lot of these Web3 games are really just so complex in their earning mechanisms, almost deliberately. And then sustainability concerns. This is really kind of wiped out these days, but I wanted to bring it up as one of the core complaints of the Web2 game community was, is blockchain actually sustainable? Are we destroying the forest through our gameplay? So I'll talk quickly about MetaTheory. MetaTheory is a Web3 game company I started almost 3 years ago. We raised money through venture from Andreessen Horowitz and Pantera. We have 22 people here in Taipei. So if any of you are interested in game design, we are hiring here in Taipei. But our mission, notably we don't talk about Web3 in the mission, but it's to defy the mundane through games that spark adventure and human connection. So we really want to lean into our core belief that games can really continue to help connect people around the world and spark your imagination. And our vision is a world where everyone shares and joy, growth, imagination, and belonging through play. Our strategy is to utilize latest technology, so we care a lot about Web3. We've been using a lot of AI as well in all aspects of development process, from art to coding to testing. But Web3 is a big part of our core value system. We do believe in the importance of Web3 for the future of our relationship with the internet. This was partially inspired by Twitch, like I mentioned earlier. Our mission at Twitch was to help 1 million creators around the world earn a living wage. That was our desire. Our big goal was to be our own economy. And actually Web3, from a Twitch perspective, actually does make a lot of sense. If there was a live streaming product built on Web3, I do believe that it makes sense, because at a surface level, it looks like it's just a streamer and their fans. But what's really happening behind the scenes is you have editors, you have moderators, you have people who are promoting streams. You have streamers that are working with other streamers. You have people cutting clips and posting them to YouTube, creating social media. There's a lot of people and systems that bolster the creator economy. So it kind of makes sense actually to develop an on-chain Twitch. But for now, we'll focus on video games. Twitch was early in the creator economy too. Again, we really, one of the big rally cries in the company was we just wanted to make games cool, but we also wanted to help everyday people make money online and build a global community. That was a big part of the fun of Twitch, was helping people connect across the globe and meet new friends through games and through content creation. But with MetaTheory, we've actually built and launched games already. Any of you who have participated in Web3 games in the past, again, most of them were really thin. Most of them never launched. People said they were going to launch games. There was a roadmap promise that this token is launching because games are coming. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to launch products and prove that we were builders and get the game out first before we did anything. And so this Break or Recruit game in the right, that was our first game. We built that in a very short time period, over 6 weeks, as a WebGL game, and launched that as part of our mint process. You couldn't actually mint our NFT until you played the game. We launched a different version of the game shortly after, per community feedback, and then we launched a PC game called Twilight Shift in August 2022 as a follow-on NFT collection to launch what we call the Gribbles, which is like the alien insects that you're battling. And then, just to summarize our core hypotheses in a very brief nutshell, we do think games have to be complex. Now, what's interesting is, if you look at, I'll keep using Stardew Valley as the example, there's a lot of mini games. It's not so much that fishing was necessary as part of the economy and the gameplay, but it was selected as a simple thing that felt right for the game. It felt, it fit with the theme, and albeit it's not a very fun mini game, it's still something to do. And then there's the reward mechanism, which is what causes people to keep wanting to do that more. So it's not, maybe I shouldn't say games must be complex, but the system of a game must be complex. Casual single-player games, even traditional multiplayer games like Fortnite, PUBG, they may not be able to carry a full economy. They're just not deep enough. And so you need a lot more depth and complexity. But again, that could mean more like is anybody like Genshin Impact or any of those games? There's different mini games inside that you can become good at and earn you specific things. And so it could be a sort of conglomeration of games that support an economy like this. And we think they should basically reflect the real world. It's an easy way of saying you need roles. You need value creation inside the ecosystem. Players will sort of specialize in theory in certain tasks. Some players will be good at everything, but then what they're up against is time. Where do they invest their time? What do they enjoy of all the options that they have, the value creation inside of the game system? And then lastly, like art, value creation in a game is somewhat arbitrary, but very community driven. Gaming, the community is the product, and so in our opinion, overbuilding a system at the outset not only costs more money and time, it may not be the right path. So what we're undertaking is what we call community prototyping, where we're releasing a game that's happening this Sunday, Taiwan time, 4:20 in the US, and at 7:20 in the morning on Sunday. And the goal is to start getting feedback, to actually get users, have a product that they can play with and build as fast as possible. Our cadence will be every 2 weeks to launch new content, new systems, and really listen to the core community that helps us expand out in terms of what they think this sort of foundational piece of gameplay can grow into, rather than going out. There's sort of two big things that people have done. They've released the sandbox game, not literally the sandbox, but an open world that doesn't really have much to do, in hopes that people will build things in there for others to do, and that will be the draw. That hasn't worked. That has rarely worked in games. Or on the other side, building more traditional games that are already huge, complex systems, but don't have the complexity to support an economy. And so they've gone and spent tens of millions of dollars to build something more complex and more AAA feeling, but still don't have that catch mechanism for the community. So yes, I just said this, but we want to build with the community. So unlike normal games, which you sort of build, spend a lot of effort and time, you of course do testing along the way, but we want to build with the community. So we're getting what is essentially a foundational piece of our overall ecosystem out. We have other pieces that are behind the scenes that we'll release over time, pending community feedback. And it's really a journey, sort of a public build journey with our community. So it's not the complete vision, but we'll continually add features, add products over time. And so that's coming out, not to shill, but if you're interested in the space, I think we built something really cool. We're really excited about the things we want to tack on. Again, we'll slowly figure that out. We'll let the community really tell us what they want. We'll continue to experiment with economy. We're launching the new meta in Web3 is a point system. A point system is basically a wimpy way to do a token. You're not launching a token on chain yet. There's no pricing around it, but there's this general feeling of earning. You're earning points through the various activities that we create, and the general assumption by the core community in Web3, although maybe not correct in our case, is that the points will eventually melt into a token. And so you get to sort of test a token without the true economic side, which is not a true test, but it's the closest proxy you can get without opening that one-way door, which is launching a token. And that's it. Hopefully that was helpful.
Yes. Yeah, we designed for the talk will be short because we would like to provide more time to Q&A. Today we have a Slido, right? Do you mind to project the Slido? You have the web address. Can we take some questions?
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
Yes.
As many as you got.
Yes. So, yeah, it's really nice. So, I have a first question. Like, the meta theory is kind of like a Steam platform or like a community builder for Web3 games. One day or at some time, if we own tokens, is there any ideal blockchain that you're tagging on or targeting? What do you think about that?
It's a good question. Okay, so the first part, meta theory, what are we? We're currently game makers.
Game makers.
We built a launcher, so we've actually built a Steam, a Web3 enabled Steam, but a lot of people are going out trying to build Steam. The hard part of building Steam is you need audience. And so we're ready to do that, as in we're ready to add games over time and distribute third-party games if we're successful. So our goal is to get audience to our own games, dogfood our own products, and if we can amass audience, start to add and promote other games. In our opinion, just very hard to just go straight to Steam. On the token side, we're looking at other blockchains. We talked to AVAX, we talked to NEAR, IMX. We're not sure exactly. I think at least from a transaction perspective, we want to accept all tokens.
Yeah, got it.
You can buy our stuff with whatever you want. Yeah. But in terms of launching a token, what do we launch on? We're not sure yet.
Yeah,
we're not sure yet. They're all similar.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so you're really hoping that they can provide either great dev tools, audience,
and
which is
community.
Hard.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. A lot of them can't really transfer community. So ultimately, a lot of the marketing you have to do is just typical influencer marketing.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, wait a moment. Wait a moment. Okay, if you have any question, you can log into the NTU Cool and you will find the Slido link and you can try to ask some interesting question or technical, maybe not technical, or like if you have any questions about meta theory or maybe the startup story behind Twitch, maybe you can try to put on your questions on Slido. Yes. So would you like to pick some questions? Or,
yeah, I can start from the top. I can't read this one, unfortunately.
I think you can go to the first one because the second one is the translation.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
the second one is the translation for the first Chinese.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, the high learning curve of using wallets and buying cryptocurrencies coupled with the low urgency of asset ownership. Is there? Oh, I see. These make average. Okay. How to break through? Well, I think these days most products in Web3 have extrapolated out the wallet creation step, so it feels more like a standard Web2 user flow, and the wallet is effectively invisible to you. So that's helping a lot. Buying cryptocurrencies, I don't know. More people do this than expected. I don't know if there's a lot of interesting stats I found out recently. For instance, one of the Bitcoin ATMs in America, there's many different companies, but one of the top ones transacts $1 billion in Bitcoin a year. And that's your everyday consumer. People are using it as they use Western Union, which is a sort of cross-border payment system. They take 20%. Bitcoin is much, much lower than that. And so you're seeing crypto adoption all over the world now with everyday people. In the stands in Central Europe, Eastern Europe, because of the war, a lot of people are transacting in cryptocurrency now. This is also true in a lot of expat populations where Russians live now in Bali, where mom and pop shops, cafes, hotels are all taking crypto. And the comfort there is also similar to what I just said about the wallet creation. They make it really easy for you. So if you accept Bitcoin, it automatically converts to USDC or USDT. And so to you, it feels stable. Like you're not dealing with fluctuation. You feel like you're getting paid the exact amount in USD that you wanted to get paid. And so all that stuff is becoming less and less complex, which in theory will drive up adoption. And then generally just trust, right? Now with all these Bitcoin ETFs and all these like celebrities promoting Bitcoin again, that will the rest of the crypto industry will draft off of that. But a lot of it's trust. I think not that central finance world is not full of fraud and scams, but a lot of what's gone on in Web3 has been overshadowed by crypto. There's a lot of scams in crypto, so that I think we have to get through that sort of trough of distrust. And I think that's going to happen this next cycle. Probably not this cycle, but the next one.
Yeah.
Are we going in? Is Meta Theory also going into live streaming and web? I don't know. No, not right now. We've joked about it. We can build it really easily if we wanted to, in terms of the technology side of things. Live streaming is very expensive, though. And my general feeling about live streaming's future is serverless P2P.
Yeah.
I think that is just where it can go. There's the only P2P one that exists today, as far as I know, is one that's based in Korea called Africa TV. They're starting to expand around the world. But streaming is so expensive if you don't do that. So it's a really, really tough business. It's also tough to monetize because it's a bit of a race to the bottom on the rev share side. You look at products like OnlyFans and Patreon and Fan House and Passes, they're all at about 10% rev share. 10% rev share for a live streaming platform, it's impossible. Twitch gets away with 50% because that's where we started. We were one of the first to build a creator economy out west. But we're constantly, they are now, not we anymore. They're constantly getting pressure to reduce that rev share. How do you see Minecraft versus Sandbox? What is the major difference between one working versus one not quite working? Well, I think Sandbox when it launched was, main thing, it wasn't Minecraft. It didn't have sufficient build tools. It didn't have sufficient creation tools. It was actually really difficult to make anything inside a sandbox. And so what you ended up making inside a sandbox was like, basically it looked like a booth. You know, it's almost like, you know, convention center simulator. It wasn't like Minecraft where you can, it's like, Minecraft is like Legos. You could build whatever you want, pretty much. And you know, the more friends you had building, the better and faster you could build. Sandbox was really almost more like this weird advertising system. It just didn't have the proper tools to make interesting experiences. That's one. Two is, per the question above, when it launched, everything was so complicated. You had to add your wallet, sometimes the wallet would fail. You end up in this endless loop where you're trying to figure out like, what does a string of characters really mean, and sort of why is it significant to me? And then you had to buy sand, you had to buy things with sand. So if you wanted to buy things inside the game, at first anyway, I don't think they had just pure fiat transaction systems. I think they eventually added that. It's the same with Blankos. Blankos actually added it earlier. So I think a lot of people at first that were excited about it, tried it, and there was just too much friction. There's too much user friction. And then as you saw in the graph earlier, as soon as the sand token started to tank, people lost interest. They're still around. I mean, they raised a ton of money, so they're able to prop up their ecosystem through grants and sort of sponsorships, and they have a lot of user acquisition activities through content or partnerships. But it's still tough. I think they're getting better. I think the product's getting better and better, and sort of more reflective of something like a Roblox, for instance. But it's taking them a while to get there. And so that's the problem. That's the problem with a lot of Web3 projects is they rushed to get the token out. Because that's the allure, right? You can raise a ton of money from random people around the world to build. But if you take too long to build, people lose interest fast. How did we come up with the name Meta Theory? Okay, so we actually launched this before Meta changed to Meta, funny enough. It's a theory of theories, so we just thought it was funny, basically. We originally called the company Cheat Button. We just thought it was really funny, a funny name for a game company, but people couldn't remember if it was Cheat Button or Cheap Button, and so we had pronunciation issues when we did our user testing, and so we switched to Meta Theory. But that's it. I mean, it's just a theory of theories. Like for us, Web3 is like hypothetically, you know, very interesting from a raw technology standpoint. Is certainly interesting. It's a different. At the very least, even if your average person never hears the word blockchain, it's an attempt for us as builders in internet product to reset the internet, to reset the user relationship with the internet, to build a better internet that put users first, which our current internet failed. It didn't have to fail, right? Just like Web3 is no guarantee that we're going to get this right. It was the people that came after and built that decided to be overly obsessed with user data, to be really opaque with terms of service and rules and policy. So it's an opportunity for us to build something better. What was the IO software? Machinations.io. M-A-C-H. If I can type this here, but this is a class. Machinations.io. So it's really cool. They actually, you can just grab a bunch of systems that are in their library.
Wow.
It's really excellent, and actually it's great for just like, you know, general math stuff. You can random roll, you can create really complex systems, and a lot of it's free, I think. At least we haven't paid for it yet, but they have a ton of public diagrams, and some of the diagrams are of like true, like I think venture capitalists uploaded theirs. So if you wanted to just build one of these like you know, basic investment sims, you could just copy their model. So a really great product. Okay. Web3 has a mediocre reputation in the game community. How do GameFi's plan to change it? This is the really hard one. I mean, creators just like don't want to touch it. You're starting to see some of them, like Myth, some of the Fortnite players, I think because they're getting paid so much by some of these Web3 game companies, they are starting to consider promoting and testing Web3 games. But the biggest thing really, from a reputational standpoint, is you have to build good games. You have to build games people actually want to play. If you look at Pixels, and this is not to diss Pixels, I think they're doing their best and they're building as fast as possible. They're the biggest game in Web3 right now. They've got about 800,000 unique wallets per day, which is impossible to know if that's actually correlates with players because people set up multiple wallets to farm. It's a game where it's basically like a lightweight Stardew Valley where you grind out for tokens every day. And if you as you pull the players, which we've done a lot of research on the players of that game, most of them are like, I only play it to make money. It's actually quite, it's quite a tedious game. We don't really like playing it. And so that's a big challenge for them. It's not purely in itself a fun game, despite all the social components inside the game and what I mentioned earlier, the jobs, so to speak. It's still not fun enough. And so reputationally, people just generally, aside from the fraud and scam parts of crypto, people just think Web3 games are just junk games. They're casual games that no one actually wants to play. And so it's going to take good games to come out. Shrapnel, I think, is another really cool company that's coming out with like a real deep AAA game. The criticism around Shrapnel so far in the industry is it is a shooter. And so why do you need tokens in a shooter? What is the purpose of tokens in a shooter? Are cosmetics enough, right? Or is it going to start to verge into the pay-to-win system? Because you need a lot of sinks, you need a lot of reasons for people to spend a token. And can a first-person shooter like that, traditional first-person shooter, really accomplish that? A lot of people are not sure yet. But the quality of the game is really good. I think it's going to attract normal players, which is their stated goal. Right? They're trying to be an onboard mechanism for Web2 games into Web3, and they're purposely designing their Web3 stuff to be simple. Right? And so on the one hand, you have these Web3 purists that are saying, oh, it's not deep enough, it's not complex enough, like I would never do it, I don't like first person, blah, blah, blah. They're just fudding as much as they can. On the other side, you've got Web2 game people who are like, oh, you're making such a beautiful game, why are you ruining it with blockchain? And so I think it's going to take a suite of games, right? A community of great makers in Web3 to work with each other to share notes on how can you create an economy that doesn't damage people, or at least does its best to not damage people, as in not convince you to spend all this money in game with the hope of increased value and instead losing all that value. So how do you create these economies to be more robust? It's anyone's guess. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting experiments over the next couple of years. So a lot of things have to happen in order for this to really flip. But it may just take one really excellent game that has a good, strong economy that gets promoted by big streamers and big YouTubers to completely flip the industry on its head. So it could be faster than we think. But my general feeling is you're going to need a set of games because it's going to take many more games to start working for there to be true learnings that other new game companies, new startups can take into their game systems and start building these economies faster. What does a happy path look like for points to melt into tokens? What are some signs you know it's ready without a real test in the market? Very good question. So again, we're starting with this point system that's just a soft currency, a not on-chain currency. It gives us a lot of optionality in the future, along with other items in the game. So other items you might earn in the game. So as another example, we're releasing artifacts. Artifacts are lore. It's like lore items inside the game that you can collect unlimited. It gives us the optionality as a game developer to use those in a future economy as well. And so our goal is to have multiple layers of points, pseudo-currencies, that give us the flexibility to design the economy in the future. But what does a happy path look like? I mean, the easiest path, the most ideal path is we nail it, right? So your earning mechanisms for the points map perfectly to the sinks in the game. The sinks in the game could be buying cosmetics, it could be healing your character, it could be opening new maps, it could be unlocking weapons, it could be upgrading things. There are many different ways to spend the token, and that we get the math perfectly right, and so when it comes time, we go 1-to-1 points a token. That's not going to happen, right? And so eventually you look at ratios. You just try to figure out what are proper ratios for what is a better token model economy, and that point system is sort of the super currency that everything else can swap in and out of, and ultimately swap into a token. So how do we know it's ready? We don't know yet, right? I think we need to release a number, at least based on our hypothesis, we need to release this core game, which is the dungeon crawler roguelike that you'll see. Around that roguelike, we're going to build crafting systems, inventory management. We're going to build a bunch of mini games. We're polishing those now and trying to figure out when to release those, and tie them all into the game experience broadly, so that you have all these different things to do. And then I think the token moment, I mean, it's hard to figure out also because you have to time the market a little bit. Although the ideal state is you don't have to do that because you build a robust system. But you do have to sort of time the market, as in, is trust coming back in the space? Is our community desiring the token, or are they enjoying just the NFTs, right? NFTs are tokens. NFTs may be enough to prop up a game economy. So we just have to learn. I think it's going to be a lot of feedback gathering from our user base until we know it's ready. What's your opinion about Pal World, especially its development process with community and copyright issues, since it may appear in GameFi too? Who's played Pal World? I played a decent amount of Pal World. I mean, what I love about Pal World is it was made by a small amateur team.
Yeah.
And it became one of the most successful games in recent memory. Helldivers is another follow, another very small team, not your traditional publisher-powered studio, but very much AAA quality. I think Pal World is really interesting from a GameFi perspective. It is deep enough, it is multiplayer, it's social, and it has building. It has like Minecraft, people go in and just build castles and villages inside of Pal World, and it's got this collection mechanism. It has all the actual components that could make a really interesting GameFi game. So who knows? I'd be really excited if they tested a GameFi version of Pal World. I think it's quite deep enough. From a copyright issue perspective, I don't know. It is pretty similar. It's obviously inspired by Pokemon, but I think this issue of copyright and sort of copying in general is going to become harder and harder with AI. AI is going to make game creation available to everyone in the next couple of years, and art is going to start to reflect itself. It's going to be really hard to distinguish. It's going to be really easy to say, hey, like this is inspired by something, because everything's going to blur. Everything's going to start to blend together in the very near future. So yeah, is it? I mean, they admitted it, right? It's very obvious that they were inspired by it. I think some characters are maybe too close. Maybe they should be in trouble for some of that. But overall, I think it's style-wise, obviously inspired, but the characters are very clearly different. How could a game theory of interoperable blockchain infrastructure be balanced with private corporations' incentives to be sustainable? I'm not entirely sure. Whoever asked this, do you mind clarifying a little bit? I know it's anonymous, so maybe type it. I don't know if you want to be anonymous.
No, it's my question.
Oh, it's your question. Okay. How could a game theory of
Because if you build a game on chain, right, essentially you can take the items elsewhere,
right,
and then it can be utilized in other ecosystems that are not within your control of maybe monetization. So then, yeah, game companies obviously need funding. So how can they control that, balance that incentive?
Yeah, very good question. Okay, so this is another one of the big initial talking points of Web3 games is interoperability. This idea that you can take IP things that you buy in a game, characters, items, weapons, and transfer them to another game. This is going to be a long time before this is real. You see this a lot in Web3 games today. So Pixels, Nifty Islands, Zverse. A lot of these games are just bringing in other IP, largely as a marketing mechanism, and also just out of respect for what is one of the ongoing desires of the Web3 community, which is I want to be able to take my stuff out of the game. It's mine. I own it. I want to be able to put it in other games. The current game industry, as it's designed today, does not want this. Why do you have such strong IP rights management from these game companies is because they want to control. They want to control the story. They want to be able to tell you when and where you can use this through licensing. And so I think it's going to be a long time before you start to see these larger, like some really big game system that makes it easy to do that and fun. The other hard part is it's technically very difficult, right? If you take an item out of one game and put it in another game, chances are the art doesn't match, the graphics don't match, the rigging might not match, the animations might not work, and it may not be, usable. As in, if you take, a sword from this game into this game, what does it do, right? What are you supposed to? What is that game supposed to do with that item? And so it's very complex. You need to develop from the ground up systems that respect and understand what those items are, what they do, and how they fit in the game. Is it meant to be held? Is it meant to be worn? Is it meant to be written on? So it's really complicated to get there. But this is sort of the Ready Player One, the metaverse that everyone was talking about in 2020 and 2021, or 2019 to 2021. That's really a fundraising bubble. I mean, metaverse is really just a VC bubble. It's going to take the entire mindset shift of an industry for this to happen. So it's not going to happen, right? Traditional game companies are not going to do this. And so it's going to take the Web3 community to find growth, find audience, and to continue to want this philosophy, to continue to believe that this is going to be important in the future. I suspect because Web3 ultimately is humans, this is going to take a really long time. Because why would if I grow a big game, your average builder is going to be focused on that and growing that game system. The interoperability stuff, like I said, is just technically very difficult. So you have to really, really want it to exist in order for it to happen. But I do think it's going to be a thing. I think it's going to be important, right? The basic idea of owning my items in case a game gets shut down, I at least still have them. I can still put them somewhere on the internet. I can still sell them sometime in the future if I wanted to, or gift them to friends. I think that is still a really important aspect of this. But I think the interoperability thing's going to be again, it exists today, right? You see some of this stuff in Sandbox or some of these big, nifty islands, but they're sort of designed specifically for that. I don't know that, if someone builds a World of Warcraft, they'll let other items in for a while, that's for sure. It's too much complexity. What kind of regulations do you think could be interesting for developing a good environment for these games? Regulations be enforced by the government. Yeah, I mean, so much of it is just basic consumer protection for now. And so that's a harder statement than I made it out to be. You have to protect the users, right? Buying tokens for most people is based off of nothing but either something you saw on Twitter or Reddit or some TikTok show, or recommendations of friends. A lot of the information about tokens and Web3 games is really not designed in a way for the average person to understand. And tokens are launching every second these days. There's not enough regulation around it. So I think that goes pretty deep, right? On can crypto be a thing? Can you really define what is effectively a security in a slightly different way, and make it so that there's recourse for users, there's paths to compensation if you get screwed by one of these projects. I think that's the high level, right? You have to tackle the financial part, the token part. From just generally for game environment creation on ownership of NFTs, that you don't really need a lot of regulation for that, I think. But it's the fun part that everyone's charging towards is this full economy. That's going to take some amount of regulation, just again broadly. I think more on the what is a cryptocurrency in society, how are you supposed to interact with it, what regulations do builders have to respect. That's the more complex piece. Game stuff, it'll get more complex over time. There's a lot of regulation, for instance, around loot boxes, right? That's happening around the world, in Europe and in China. That people feel like that's a really unfair, almost gambling-like mechanism. You start to see that in Web3 already. So that regulation will also change a lot of the environment for Web3 games. But beyond that, in terms of, okay, now items are NFTs and thus collectible and tradable. I don't think you need too much regulation on that to make that part interesting. What is the secret sauce for developing great mechanisms that grow community on Twitch and for upcoming meta theory? Oh geez, Twitch was really tough. I'd say the core things we did, we reached out to creators. Okay, number one, identify your core customer. Twitch is a really complex ecosystem. There's viewers, there's creators, and again, there's all this sort of middle people. There's moderators, editors, producers, etc. There's a ton of people that sort of prop up the overall economy of Twitch. We didn't know we were doing it all, and at first we thought our customers were viewers, which is asking a viewer for feedback on where you should take the product is just inviting a fire hose of information that is unusable. And so it wasn't until we figured out that creators were our customers, and creators are much more sensible. It's a smaller subset of the audience. They're also viewers. They also use everything on the platform. They care about their viewers, and they basically process viewer feedback for us. And so we pulled out one layer, and that really helped us a lot. So building the relationship through feedback gathering seems a little bit weird, but we befriended creators really quickly. They wanted to talk to us as founders. They wanted to know that their feedback was heard. That means you had to actually build stuff. So actually processing the feedback, going back, sort of mentioning to everybody publicly, hey, thanks for all this feedback. Based on this feedback, these are the top 3 things y'all care about. We're going to build number 1, release it, give us feedback. If that's good, we'll go to number 2. So this constant feedback cycle, and we're going to take that to meta theory. That's what we're so excited about launching. Even though what we're launching is what we call a vertical slice. It's a very short gameplay slice to test out some of our core assumptions on combat system, and just test out art and see if people like it, see if people like the overall gameplay loop, and then build on top of that. The purpose is to get feedback, and the purpose is to start to build this relationship with players and start to understand that. But these days, Discord is a really good tool. Twitter is obviously a good tool. Discord probably is the core tool now in Web3 for developing and growing a community. And that's really being out there. That's really being available as a team. That's listening to people. That's processing feedback. That's being, exuding the culture you want in your community. Of being, in our case, being kind and open-minded, building together. And so that was a big part of it. But with Twitch, our growth came from developing relationships with creators and having a good feedback process. Then the expansion of the community really came through tools, primarily chat. So chat really allowed us to, allow creators to develop their own communities. It helped us really sort of build almost community-to-community experiences through that. So while the creator was more of this like hearth, like a campfire for people to gather, people through chat got to know each other and became friends. So chat was really one of our most important systems on the platform. What is the most challenging aspect of your work? People. People are the challenge. Everything is people. And it's hard, people, building good culture is a challenge, especially in remote. I'd say building culture at Twitch was much easier in my experience because we were all in one place for the most part. You get to know each other, you can debate and fight, argue, and everything's good afterwards because there's this fundamental knowing of each other. You understand each other. You know that you're people, you make mistakes, we fail constantly. And it's, in a remote environment, it is harder to build those relationships. We do like to hire, young folks because we want. We were given these opportunities, and we want to help other folks get these opportunities and hopefully start their companies one day. And hiring young folks in the remote environment where getting to know other people on the team, it is quite challenging. Making sure they get enough mentorship, making sure that process is good but not overbearing. That is all challenging. I think the other part of it too for us in meta theory that's unique now is we don't really have a competitor. Interestingly, Twitch had competitors, which was it was wartime all the time, so it drove us. There's no competitor in Web3 per se. The competitor is ourselves, right? Because our community continues to put out products that cause distrust and harm. And so that's what we're really up against is how do we get out from the question earlier, how do we get out of this cycle of badness and to start to build real trust and good products out there as a community?
There's coffee if you want.
Oh, cool, thank you. How do you address concerns about the game company having great control over tokens, such as potential for selling all tokens when the game is struggling? Okay, this is one of my chief complaints about the space. Web3 is supposed to be about decentralization. Nothing is decentralized. Like, every major chain out there is controlled by creators of the chain and their investors. Yes, you can have governance. Yes, you have voting mechanisms for like lightweight decision making. Sometimes it's really deep. You look at Pudgy Penguins as a good example. The community voted out one of the founders of Pudgy Penguins. That is real power, right? But that is one of the rare projects where they truly do respect the philosophy of Web3. Most do not. And so it's just kind of fake. A lot of it's kind of fake right now. I actually think the best way to do this, and this is something we debate about a lot internally, is can we as one company, should we as one company ever launch a layer 2 in our own token, ecosystem? Or do we join another one that exists, Solana, AVAX, etc., which has these issues I just mentioned? Or is there an opportunity to like bind together as a larger community of builders and launch a token where it's distributed, it's truly distributed, it's decentralized, none of us have any major power. Yes, we might make less money than if we launch our own token, sure. But now we have a community of builders, we can share notes, we can share expertise, we can build for each other, we can share audience with each other, we can share knowledge and experience with each other, and there's a bigger pie, and we have a smaller piece of that bigger pie. So we think about this a lot, but it feels more Web3, right, versus what is actually out there, where the sheen is Web3, they talk about Web3, hey, we're all in this together, blah, 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 but at the end of the day, yes, this question is on point. You can get screwed by anyone in that ecosystem that holds a large portion of the tokens, and that is in fact what ends up happening in many cases. So how do you address that? I don't know. I mean, I think yes, you either build a coalition, or you have to have a really above board team, right? An ethical team that is managing it with the transparency that is supposed to be part of this Web3 community. Have you bought or tried Vision Pro yet? What do you think about it? Is it related to your vision? Vision for Web3 Meta Theory. I haven't tried it actually. All my friends that have tried it either said it's too heavy. One of my friends actually got a black eye from it, from wearing it for 4 hours. I think, observationally, is really cool. I think they're marketing it really smartly. It is a screen replacement. I think that is a really smart way to start it. You're not completely obfuscating your view from your natural environment. You're just placing screens all over the place to make it easy. So if it wasn't such a heavy device and was better ergonomically designed, in theory that's actually good for you, right? Instead of sitting at a desk and a computer. But I think the far future vision of it is really interesting. I'm excited about it. I just didn't get it since most of the feedback about this particular version was bad. I don't know if I have in a way, yes, building under meta theory is meant to be in the mixed reality space. So I am interested in it. We've been messing with the dev kit, or JT has, CTO in Texas. So yes, I think mixed reality is very, very much going to be a thing, for better or for worse for society. So I do think that is a big part of our future. So we're thinking about it constantly. But yeah, I haven't actually tried it yet. Have I heard of Zuzulu? What do I think about it? Related to roadmap for me. Zuzulu is super cool. So like, Jackie maybe asked this question.
It's me. Sorry.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you want to talk about it actually? I mean.
Yeah. I don't think it's. No, it's okay. It's
Okay.
not related to gaming that much.
Yeah, but it's still really cool. I mean, like I think on the one hand it's like ID system. On the other hand, it's like a temporary society experience.
Yeah.
It's a pop-up city.
It's a pop-up city.
Yeah.
They did it in Monte Carlo last year.
Montenegro, yeah.
Montenegro, that's right. And then they're going to do it in Taiwan this year, which is really exciting. I have a lot of experience with this actually because a friend of mine didn't do a pop-up city, but he built basically a small village into like a mini city from the ground up in Las Vegas, called Downtown Project Las Vegas. Tony Hsieh, also a Taiwanese guy, unfortunately deceased now, but he did this. He bought a bunch of land and he started with a small trailer park and started to invest in things around him. He invested in cafes and bookbinding shop and a music recording studio, bars and hangout venues and restaurants, and slowly kind of built out a society that was built on values that he and his friends defined. Really cool experience. I think that's really interesting, right? I think what can you learn from these pop-up experiences that actually can become relevant in day-to-day life through technology? I think it's a really cool experiment.
Okay, the last question.
How would a cooperative business model work on this control over tokens and so? Being cooperative like a traditional co-op and help farmers. Okay, so this is a good question. So to follow on what I said earlier, I think a big part of Web3, the opportunity is building new culture through tech, and so a big part of this would be, okay, can you find a coalition of people that have similar values, as in they have similar hopes for what Web3 can do for human society, and draft that as an ironclad, almost 10 commandments. That's what you live by. That's what you build by. This is how you treat customers, most importantly, and that has to be true forever. And so you end up with this almost a control mechanism of a community rather than having a handful of people at the helm and thus able to shift over time. You have a distributed community of people who believe in the same thing, and so no one person or no small group of people can completely turn things. We saw this with Twitch, right? We debated constantly internally on policy. Actually, as systems get large, it's not so much the product that you build that matters as much, although monetization products are important. It's policy. What do you allow to happen in your community? What is okay? And it's constant gray area. We're constantly debating. The Twitch community is just full of trolls that love to ride that gray area, and so we're having to make real decisions on that. What can you show on a screen? What can you say on a screen? Especially with the global community, is harder and harder because everyone lives by their set of rules and their culture, and those don't always match up. Right? US culture versus Middle Eastern culture, very different in terms of what is okay to talk about, what is okay to display on video publicly. And so if you extrapolate that to this, it's really, okay, if you come up with this core set of rules, who will enforce them? Ideally, everyone enforces them, right? Everyone believes in that, and it's just inherent and believed across the society, across the community, and that's good. In the reality, you have enough people in a system that breaks down, so you need leadership. And so even though it's decentralized, you need leadership, but I think in the ideal state, in this idea of can you build this co-op type of thing, not only is it more Web3, so to speak, it distributes that control across people who fundamentally believe a certain way. And so if one person changes their mind or a handful of people change their mind, it's much harder to influence. Now, this means you have to get it right in the beginning, which is almost also impossible, right? Things change, culture changes. Your community will want things that you don't expect necessarily. You can't predict everything. And so you still need these mechanisms for change, but in theory, it's safer because it's in control of more people. Easier said than done, right? Democracy is still really difficult to manage, but at least in this case, you have more people that not only can support a core set of values, but can help grow the ecosystem faster. Cool. All right.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. So we would like to formally invite you, if you have time, around. We are planning to have a final term presentation around June 5th. Okay. So if you have time, our student is trying to build up some things related to decentralized application from gaming or to social impact. So if you or your team would like to meet some talent here, or if you want to meet some project or some people, welcome to join us.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love to check it out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool.
好，那我们今天呢，我们就先 提前下课，那也留一些时间给大家，如果大家还有问题想要跟这个 Kevin 请教的话，那我们还有一点时间，好不好？那我们今天时间非常难得那我们真的非常感谢。那之后 ，so later on we will upload the video to YouTube of our course YouTube channel. We would love to share everything that we have in our course. Yeah. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you. Yes. 好，下课，谢谢。
One question I asked.
Fiat money, sorry.
Oh.
Yeah. Really? Okay, donate and we airdrop the token for them to try out the smart contract on the mainnet. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. Together? Yes. Here.
6月10号是我最后一天把我的名字写进交上去。他在我本来6月7号就要交，我给一个。
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, if I can be very helpful. Anything let me know.
Yes. Actually, legislative again, which is on where 2021, we really focusing on the younger generation technology. We even have a group that we would love to encourage and assist in also myself. So let's keep in contact and thank you Jackie for inviting legendary founding. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Or maybe your team member.
Yeah. We're investing in local startups.
Nice. Yeah. Yes. Thank you for coming. Yes.
我想保持接受节目专题有跟到。
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. If you still have time. Yeah, you can say it. Yeah. 没有，我们的课也是公开的，我们课也是公开的，对，我们所有的课程内容必须是全部是就是 open， 呀，就是因为就希望人民的公开课嘛，来，所以 should be open。
So I think before this, I think I'm not very curious about economy or everything. I think today I'm so
high level, so if you want to talk more about your level.
Yeah, very interesting because there will be digital history. Actually, it's originally. Hopefully, who knows? Without a very long sense of time.
Happy to talk to you.
Maybe can I come back to you by Twitter?
Yeah, sure. That's Kevin Lin on Twitter.
Oh, okay, I can It will be too hard.
OK， 刚好，那这样我们可以有时间。那你干嘛不先？有空吗？好，那先这样就这样吧。对，谢谢。
没错，但是先跟你讲一下。
会他们会有人看到吗？我这个发之后会才让大家往这个。I like that.
这个官网就一堆这就是
是你认识的学长，可以聊一下期末。
先是的，然后如果有想要，如果已经有想要主题，可以分享看看，然后你们有什么关系？
对，但也不一定要做很重，就是。
Yeah, thank you. Most of them are Department of Computer Science, and I would like to let them know the Web3 will be a new Web2. They can build almost anything happened before in Web2 on Web3 again. Right? Yeah, of course. Yes, thank you. Very nice to meet you. Yeah, thank you.
可以问了，当然。大二就已经在想了，就是不是大学
下个学期啊，下个学期。
OK， 是在什么系？OK， OK。
如果一到节目，
恭喜！呀，那个很好啊，因为之后已经不止，
然后可能学士班可能
就是说
加进来之后可能之类的，对，就是会比的时间是少，但相对的就是我觉得我们会选
上学期的课还有人类学习的来
聚在一起开，然后
多交流。
但是其实就是相对比较快，因为老师有说会 focus 在这个案子。所以老师其实没有太多心力去把要去但相反，
我现在有一个斜杠，
如果你是
new hat，
喜欢高强度的高级的报告，或是已经跟老师接触，对，那如果你自己本身就是service， 那我就觉得
我刚点名了，被点错。
被点错。
哎，你有加入 dApp 吗？
你是说有叫你吗？
然后后面宝宝有念点名，他有没有点？
对，他的风格就是。
你跟我讲一下你的说法。
Yeah, because you know
没有，我前面就有举，他没听到我，然后后面就接着讲。
我觉得
是不是做了？
就是因为我们
他打了，我记得他们说他刚刚觉得 GPT 张了一下
generative AI，
因为我们
AI can do that. So I have a chance to
这个举手，然后那个人可能没有来，
对，就是他念在一起，就是他在但你现在也不知道他来没来。
We should communicate.
对，他就是有好有坏。
老师，你刚刚问那个问题是什么？你刚刚问他那个问题是什么？
应该都有人比较喜欢问。
就那个，
我觉得
没错。
接下来很多事情
我问的
都会影响
我问的，
自己有很多想法，那我就觉得
我是打在上面，我没有考虑进来。对，没错。第一个，
多欢迎。
没有，
当然没有。
问了好多问题，真的有点惊讶。
没有。
就是说你的资产是被保护，你的资产是在上面被某一个方法提到。这件事情对上面的使用者
好啊
没有
，Let's keep in touch.
因为其实大家无法情况下，其实大家也没有很关心打不打，因为大家基本上都是信任。那我们要怎么样去需要那个 regular 就是。